Recap. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Dao, Chapter 905, Chapter. The quiet courtyard seemed peaceful, yet within the unseen depths of Linghan's consciousness, the small tower was nearly speechless with shock. If the mysterious tower had possessed a face, it would likely have been staring wide-eyed in utter disbelief. After a long moment of stunned silence, the small tower finally spoke, its voice carrying a mixture of amazement and helpless exasperation. This descendant of the white tiger, its injury is most likely a brain injury. The tower sighed internally, utterly baffled. This fellow truly believes itself to be nothing more than an ordinary cat. It's practically simple-minded. Outside, the far more mundane world continued its lively scene. Li Weiwei crouched on the ground, her eyes sparkling mischievously. In her hand, she held a soft ball of wool that had rolled across the floor earlier. With a playful grin, she waved it toward the plump feline. "Little kitty, come here quickly. Look, I've got another ball." She tossed the woolen ball lightly through the air. The fat cat's eyes instantly widened. Before it could even think, its body had already reacted. Like a streak of lightning, it leapt forward and pounced on the wool. The moment its claws closed around the soft sphere, however, realization struck. Meow! The fat cat exploded in furious embarrassment. It stared at the ball of wool in its paws with deep regret. Why? Why did it completely lose all resistance whenever it saw these fluffy round things? Nearby, Linghan watched the scene unfold with amused eyes. A faint smile appeared on his lips as he stepped forward. "Fat cat," he said calmly, his voice warm yet steady, "why don't we become friends?" The cat lifted its head suspiciously. Linghan continued, speaking as if casually discussing the weather. "If we're friends, then from now on you can eat as much of the barbecued meat here as you want, until you're completely full." He spread his hands slightly. "Of course, you can always try to snatch the food like before. But remember, I can simply choose not to bring it out. And if I feel like it, I can go eat somewhere else entirely." His words were simple, yet each one struck the fat cat directly in its gluttonous heart. If this had happened earlier, before the fat cat had ever tasted the extraordinary dishes prepared within the mysterious Black Tower, it would have sneered at such an offer. Food? Just a few pieces of food in exchange for friendship? Ridiculous. A proud descendant of the white tiger would never vouch head for something so trivial. But things were different now. The moment the fat cat recalled the heavenly flavor of the food from the Black Tower, its mouth began to water uncontrollably. It had even come here early this morning. Why? Precisely because it wanted to steal more of that food. Now Linghan's proposal created a fierce battle inside the fat cat's heart. On one side stood the ancient pride of the white tiger bloodline, a divine beast that should never compromise for trivial matters. On the other side stood its shameless appetite. Food. Glorious food. Linghan watched the internal struggle written across the cat's face and chuckled softly. "Relax," he coaxed with a friendly tone. "It's just friendship. I'm not asking you for anything." Meow. The fat cat hesitated only a moment longer before nodding. That made sense. After all, it didn't actually have to sacrifice anything. Nearby, Li Weiwei and Jiyuner stared with wide eyes. Their expressions were almost comically stunned. Earlier, Zhang Deman had described this creature as an unimaginably terrifying existence, something that absolutely must not be provoked. Yet now, this mighty beast had actually agreed to become Linghan's friend. Just like that. The two women could hardly believe what they were seeing. The truth was quite simple. This white tiger descendant was still very young. Young creatures were easy to fool. If it had been a crafty fellow like Rabbit instead, no amount of persuasion would have worked so easily. Linghan did not waste time. With a wave of his hand, he began bringing out food, and not merely barbecued meat. Soon, a feast appeared before them, plate after plate of delicious delicacies. Each dish was prepared using precious 1,000-year-old spirit herbs as supplementary ingredients. In the lower realms, such a meal would have been considered unimaginably extravagant, a feast worthy of kings. But in the immortal realm, it was relatively ordinary. After all, immortals possessed incredibly long lifespans. Powerful sects could easily designate entire regions for cultivating spirit herbs. After several thousand years, those herbs could be harvested in massive quantities every year. Even so, the output of those cultivation areas could never compare to the astonishing production rate inside Linghan's Black Tower. Thus, even Li Weiwei, daughter of the left minister, someone who had seen countless luxuries in her life, could not help gasping in astonishment when she saw how casually Ling Han produced such lavish ingredients. Could it be? Was a small world truly this wealthy? Naturally, the feast began soon afterward. Everyone ate to their heart's content. The fat cat, though normally proud and tsundere by nature, could not maintain its dignified posture in front of such delicious food. Its divine beast pride slowly melted away under the assault of irresistible flavor. Soon it was lying on its back lazily, its belly exposed toward the sky. Li Weiwei and Ji Yun'er happily rubbed its fluffy stomach. The once majestic descendant of a divine beast had been completely conquered by a single meal. Truly disgraceful. Yet the fat cat did not seem to mind. Meanwhile, Ling Han quietly summoned another small creature from the Black Tower, the gold-seeking rat. However, he did this discreetly so that Li Weiwei and Ji Yun'er would not notice anything unusual. From their perspective, it simply appeared that he had brought the tiny rat out from his room. The moment the rat appeared, the fat cat reacted instantly. Its body flipped upright as though struck by lightning. A predator's instinct awakened. Claws flexed, eyes narrowed. It prepared to fulfill its natural duty. Meanwhile, the gold-seeking rat froze completely. Then, with a soft paw, it collapsed onto the ground and played dead. The poor creature was terrified beyond words. Ling Han burst into laughter. "This is my pet," he said calmly to the fat cat. "Don't scare it." The fat cat paused, then, with an air of aloof dignity, it began licking its paws. Since it had already agreed to be friends with Ling Han, it had to give him a little face. Seeing that the danger had passed, the gold-seeking rat leapt onto Ling Han's shoulder with a swift shoo. One tiny paw pointed furiously at the fat cat. It squeaked loudly, clearly complaining. "Master, that big fellow wants to eat me. You must stand up for me." Li Weiwei and Ji Yun'er stared in fascination. Demonic beasts possessing intelligence were not rare. In fact, many beasts that reached the Shattering Void tier could even speak human language. And once they stepped into the immortal level, they could even transform into human form. But such an adorable little rat was truly rare. Their eyes lit up with delight. The two women immediately began fighting over who would hold it first. This frightened the gold-seeking rat so badly that it collapsed again and resumed playing dead. In its tiny mind, it was convinced that these two women also wanted to eat it. During this lively meal, Ling Han quietly reached an agreement with the two women, a business alliance. Li Weiwei and Ji Yun'er would be responsible for opening sales channels throughout the imperial capital. Ling Han would supply the goods. The profits would be divided evenly, half for Ling Han and the remaining half shared between the two women. Li Weiwei's spirits soared with excitement. This was an opportunity to completely change how others viewed her. In her father's eyes, she had always been nothing more than a spoiled young lady who only knew how to spend money. But who lacked pride? Li Weiwei clenched her fists internally. She would prove herself. She was not merely a rich girl who relied on her father's influence. With blazing determination, she quickly left together with Ji Yun'er, eager to begin their grand enterprise. After they departed, Ling Han leisurely made his way toward another destination, the library of the Northern Institution. The building stood quietly within the academy grounds, yet inside it contained an ocean of knowledge. Cultivation techniques, martial arts manuals, alchemy methods, formation techniques. Countless books filled its shelves. However, knowledge here was not freely given. Students had to earn academic credits through effort and achievement in order to exchange for these valuable teachings. Of course, that rule only applied to immortal level techniques. Methods suitable for the Shattering Void tier were considered far too basic. Thus, all academy students could freely read them. For Ling Han, this meant he could enter the library without worrying about academic credits. Still, the thought lingered in his mind. Academic credits, he murmured quietly to himself. If he wanted to obtain immortal-level cultivation techniques in the future, he would have to find ways to earn those credits. There was another option: auction houses. Cultivation techniques could sometimes appear at auctions in exchange for true origin stones, but such treasures always carried astronomical prices. Even if Ling Han opened a profitable market for the food from the Black Tower, It would be extremely difficult to compete financially with the great noble families of the imperial capital, at least until his alchemy began flourishing. Therefore, earning academic credits remained the most realistic path. One thing, however, was absolutely certain. Ling Han had no intention of taking a master. Since ascending to the throne in the lower realms, his personality had changed. He now carried the pride of an emperor. In this world, who could truly qualify to be the master of an emperor? Soon he arrived at the entrance to the library. An old man sat quietly by the doorway. His head was covered entirely with thick white hair, so dense that his face could barely be seen. His body swayed gently back and forth. He appeared to be fast asleep. Ling Han considered the scene briefly. Then he calmly stepped around the old man and attempted to walk inside. Suddenly, pa! A walking stick shot out like lightning, blocking his path. "Kid," the old man said slowly as he raised his head, "are you planning to steal a book?" Ling Han stopped immediately and clasped his hands politely. "I would not dare. I merely wish to borrow some books to read." The old man stared at him for a long moment. Then he spoke again. "Place your palm on that stone." He pointed toward a pillar nearby. "You'll naturally learn which levels you're allowed to enter and what techniques you're permitted to browse." Ling Han nodded respectfully. "Thank you for your guidance, Senior." He turned toward the stone pillar. It stood roughly half a man's height. At its top rested a small jade stone, slightly larger than the size of a palm. Ling Han placed his hand upon it. In an instant, a strange sensation swept through his mind. His consciousness tingled briefly, like a faint numbness. Then everything returned to normal. If Ling Han's spiritual perception had not been exceptionally sharp, he would never have noticed anything at all. But he had noticed. The old man's eyes flickered with interest when he saw Ling Han's expression. "Yi?" He leaned forward slightly. "You actually sensed that a trace of your spirit was drawn out?" Ling Han's expression changed dramatically. The spirit was incredibly important to any cultivator. And now, a fragment of his spirit had been taken? Seeing his reaction, the old man chuckled softly. "Don't worry," he said with a wave of his hand. "It won't affect you." Then he gestured casually toward the library. "Go in." Ling Han nodded and stepped inside. After Ling Han disappeared among the towering shelves, the old man sat quietly once more. He muttered softly to himself. "This kid, his spiritual perception is remarkably sensitive." A faint smile appeared beneath the curtain of white hair. "Interesting. He might be worth watching for a while." Beneath the quiet eaves of the Scarlet Heaven Academy's grand library, Ling Han walked alone through the first floor, his footsteps soft against the ancient stone. This level was open to him without restriction, yet what lay here was clear to any discerning eye. These were techniques beneath the immortal level, foundations laid for those still climbing the mortal path. But Ling Han was in no rush. Like a traveler wandering through a vast sea of hidden knowledge, he moved slowly between the rows, fingers brushing across bone-inscribed texts as he flipped through them one by one. His gaze was calm, yet within his heart, currents of thought surged like a storm waiting to break. The origin power cultivation technique he currently practiced? It was far from supreme. If he continued along this path, even with the support of the extreme yang technique, the limit of his strength would likely stall at 18 or 19 stars. To others, that would already be a height worthy of reverence. But to Ling Han, who sought the absolute peak of 20 stars, it was not enough, not even close. Thus, a decision had already taken root in his mind. He would change his cultivation technique. Yet this was no trivial matter. To alter one's core method of cultivation was to shake the very foundation of one's martial path. It would inevitably affect future breakthroughs, possibly slowing progress or introducing unseen risks. But if he wished to grasp the ultimate limit of origin power, there was no other road. And so, he searched. The Scarlet Heaven Academy, particularly its northern institution, revealed its generosity here. Technique after technique lay before him, each complete with 10 levels of cultivation, each capable of guiding a practitioner to the peak of the Shattering Void tier. Beyond that, one could apply for the Academy's elite teachings, methods to ascend toward the Mountain River tier. But beyond the Mountain River tier, that path belonged to the cultivator alone. This was a truth as old as the martial world itself. Cultivation was a solitary journey. No master, no scripture, no ancient inheritance could replace one's own understanding. When faced with an obscure principle, one could ponder for days or years or even an entire lifetime without breakthrough. To rely on others was to cripple oneself. Ling Han understood this deeply. He continued searching, yet even after a long time, no single technique seemed perfectly suited to him. Advancing to 9, 10, even 11 stars of shattering void tier strength was manageable, but pushing beyond to 12 or 13 stars was like ascending to the heavens themselves. Each additional star was a near impossible leap. Then, suddenly, a spark flashed through his mind. He halted mid-step, eyes narrowing slightly as inspiration surged forth. Now that I possess 6 attributes, what if I cultivate 6 different techniques and merge them into one? The thought struck like lightning. In that instant, excitement surged uncontrollably within him. Without hesitation, he began searching once more, this time with purpose. He combed through the vast collection, selecting 6 techniques of similar level, each aligned with one of the 6 attributes, the 5 elements, and thunder. One by one, he memorized them. The materials here could not be taken away. These were no ordinary books. Each technique was inscribed upon bone. Some came from beasts, others from humans. Holding them sent a faint chill through the spine, as if one were touching remnants of ancient lives. As Ling Han's fingers brushed across the surface, the bones shimmered faintly. Patterns emerged. Not words, but intricate, interwoven secret diagrams, flowing like currents of energy. Alongside them appeared detailed charts of meridians, marking the precise pathways of origin power and the hidden acupoints within the human body that must be unlocked. So this is how it works, Ling Han murmured softly, his eyes bright with revelation. For someone from a small world, even one who had lived 2 lifetimes, this was entirely new. The limitations of his origin could not be denied. In his past, he had only studied 2 10-level techniques, one from the sea race and one from the 5 great sects. Those methods could at best bring him to 11 stars of shattering void tier strength, still 2 stars short of the true limit. But here, everything was different. He immersed himself fully in the study. At his current level, the peak of the 9th layer of the shattering void tier, these techniques were not obstacles, but references. He absorbed them with ease, understanding their essence without frustration. Joy rose within him. Confidence followed. If I integrate these 6 techniques, I can reach 13 stars of origin power. As for body refinement, there was no need for concern. The 9 Dragons tyrant body art he cultivated was already supreme, sufficient to push his physical strength to its utmost limit. Time flowed quietly. Less than half a day passed before Ling Han finally closed his eyes, exhaling slowly. A faint smile appeared on his lips as he returned the bone texts to their rightful places. Then he turned toward another pursuit, alchemy. Before long, his gaze locked onto an ancient scripture. Found it! Unlike the bone texts, this was a true book. As he flipped through its pages, he discovered that it recorded the methods for refining level 10 alchemical pills, along with descriptions of their effects on Mountain River tier cultivators. One pill caught his attention, the replenishing spirit pill. Ling Han did not grow greedy. He chose to focus solely on this one recipe for now. Memorizing the ingredients was simple. Any cultivator with a decent memory could achieve that. But the true difficulty lay elsewhere. In alchemy, one had to extract the unique patterns hidden within each medicinal ingredient and weave them together during the refining process. A single mistake, a moment's lapse, and the entire concoction would collapse into failure. Thus, while the list of ingredients occupied only half a page, the explanation of pattern interweaving spanned 18 full pages, and this was merely a level 10 pill. God-level pills were far more terrifying. A single recipe could fill an entire massive tome, vast beyond imagination. Fortunately, immortals possessed lifespans long enough to study countless recipes. Otherwise, a cultivator of the shattering void tier could only hope to master a dozen or so such pills in their lifetime. Ling Han continued studying. Another half day slipped by. Finally, he closed the book and shut his eyes, silently digesting everything he had learned. Though the replenishing spirit pill was not truly a god-level pill, its effects on Mountain River tier cultivators made it exceedingly complex, almost a pseudo-god-level formula. For someone at his current level, refining it would not be easy. Yet Ling Han was not lacking in confidence. The reincarnation tea has greatly strengthened my spirit, and with the indestructible heavens scroll stabilizing it, I should be able to refine this pill. Still, reality tempered his ambition. Alchemy was a path of repeated failure. One might succeed after a few attempts or after dozens, and he only possessed 2 true origin stones. I wonder how many ingredients I can afford. With that thought, he placed the ancient book back and turned to leave. His next destination lay beyond the academy. He needed to purchase the materials required for refining the replenishing spirit pill. As he approached the library's entrance, the white-haired old man stationed there cast him a glance. Ling Han stepped through the doorway. Then, unexpectedly, the old man spoke. "My surname is Shu. You may call me Old Man Shu. Come visit when you have time. I enjoy speaking with the young." Ling Han paused, slightly startled. Turning back, he cupped his hands and bowed respectfully. "Yes, senior." Though the old man's presence seemed ordinary, even unremarkable, Ling Han knew better. In a place like the Scarlet Heaven Academy, how could there exist an ordinary person? There was a subtle dignity about the old man, a quiet, unyielding spirit. Not arrogance, but something deeper. Old Man Shu waved him off. Ling Han departed. Only after his figure vanished into the distance did the old man murmur to himself, "This boy intends to cultivate 6 techniques at once." A faint smile curved his lips. Few understand that relying on a single technique makes it impossible to reach the ultimate limit of origin power. Yet this child from a small world has stumbled upon the answer by chance. How interesting. He paused, eyes flickering with a distant light. Luck is also strength. A shadow of memory passed across his face. If not for my own circumstances, I would not have fallen to this state. Such is fate, such is fortune. Then his gaze sharpened. Perhaps, through him, this old man's regrets may yet be resolved. The moment those words left his lips, a terrifying aura erupted from his body. Behind him, 4 vast galaxies manifested, each one equal in size, radiating unimaginable power. Yet at the same instant, a black chain materialized, coiling tightly around his chest. His body trembled. Blood spilled from his mouth as he coughed violently. And so, the truth remained hidden. Who could have imagined that the quiet old man guarding a humble library door was in fact a supreme existence, one who had reached the pinnacle of perfection in the heavenly body tier?